How much do you love it when a plan comes together? I am Tavish Cardiff. It is our Raw Materials Aligning with Intention Week, the 11th week of the 12-week practice. So this pillar is the last of the mental weeks. When we look at the 9th week, intention, which is emotional, we start to form all of the things that we want, all of the intentions. And when we notice those and pay attention to those, we see they are innumerous. They just happen constantly. All of these things that we want. The 10th week, right in between, spiritual resources. How do we line up the things that we really want with the resources to get them? So the 9, 10, 11, 12 really work together as a team. Our emotions drive us to the things that we want, and then we line up what we can to get it. We notice what's available in the universe to support us. We see what sort of resources we have around us, and we see how supported we actually are. This enables us to fully align with intention. So it lets us put our mind on what we want. We have the emotional space of wanting it. We have lined up the means to get it, the resources, and now we are aligning with the intention, meaning our idea itself is coming to some sort of fruition. And when we accomplish things in the mental space of aligning with intention, that provides some really positive feelings. From the ego level, it's definitely accolades and accomplishments and all that kind of thing, but it's also so much more. When we add this space of recognizing the resources that got us there, and especially if you get to give a speech for accomplishing something, you get to get up and actually thank people. What you'll see is a lot of people who say, I didn't do this alone, and they'll go and name all of the people that help support the thing that they did that came from an idea in their heart, an idea in their mind, and then they put it together, brought the resources together, and made the thing happen. That's a nutshell of the many, many things that people accomplish and the ways that they accomplish them. But it's the same process over and over. We form an idea, we line up what we want to get it, and then we use our mental power to make it happen. And if we haven't lined up the proper resources, it's very hard to put our mind to making something happen. If it's just something that we're emotional about, it's really difficult to put our mind to it because we haven't fully reasoned through the emotion of the thing. And if we don't spend the time in the spiritual space dreaming about it, we might miss some details, and we'll have to come back and reinvent the wheel because somewhere in there we skipped a step. When we do that, we find ourselves honed in on our ability to create an environment that produces the things that we want with the support that we need. So aligning with intention is really good for our mental state, and it helps support our ego as we accomplish, a tiny thing, and then it turns into a bigger thing. We feel confident saying what we need and claiming what we need so long as we have brought together what we need to make it happen. And as we see ourselves put those little steps together over and over, we get a sense of, like I said, accomplishment. Intentions are emotional. We fire them off constantly. But aligning has meaning and purpose. Aligning means we've actually thought it through. Now, we align with intention to do things, and I think we make the mistake sometimes of deciding that if the outcome isn't a full win, that somehow it wasn't worth the effort. And here is where I would like to rework our thinking just a little bit. Again, we pull intentions to align to from a vast pool of huge emotions. And then we gather the resources, we put them together, we align with the intention to accomplish a thing. And it's that process that actually leads us into the things that we want and into understanding our own creative power. Whether we win or lose isn't so much the nourishment that we need to support our wholeness. The journey itself, the putting intentions together, having them not completely work, there's a lot to be learned from that space too. We think we've thought something through really well, and then all of a sudden we see where the holes are, or we see where the places that we didn't think about are. We realize that we might have needed more resources than we knew. And all of a sudden, the scope of what we know expands, and we are humbled by the experience. We realize we didn't think of everything. We thought we did, but we didn't. And the more that we can back up and look at that space objectively, and we can watch ourselves become more and more aware of our own ability to create the things around us, we start to have appreciation for places where in the past we might have been defensive. So our mental state, if we can leave it pliable, right? It's always like being worked a little bit. Let's say it's even made of an otherworldly substance, something that we don't have to pull nails out of and rework. We can just actually reshape it with a new truth. And, that's just an imagination thing, but what is our mental state but some bit of imagination? We hold it rigidly because we defend it, but really it is in a constant state of moving around, and the intentions that we decide to align with really shift daily and are very dependent on, the motivation that we gain from the resources around us. And it's hard to talk about aligning with intention in a week where my dad is still sitting in the ICU, because of course the intentions that I want are very emotional. I can line up the right things. My family can line up the right doctors, and we can have the best caregivers, and we truly have had the best care. But when it comes to what the actual outcome is going to be, we can align the process, and we can't say how things are going to wind up. We can be proud of ourselves for the effort that we put forth and what we have gathered together, and all of the cool little signs and neat little coincidences and things that come up as a result of paying attention to the same thing as another group of people. So our family as a whole, all of the coincidences. Just one, I had to run into someplace today. It's the first time I've really been anywhere in weeks outside of the hospital. And I walked in, and there was a guy wearing a Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon t-shirt. That album has been kind of a mantra healing for my dad during this process, and we've done a lot of energy work to the album, specifically Dark Side of the Moon. So of course, here comes this guy with this t-shirt on. He just happens to be there reflecting back to me that the universe is supporting me even while I'm away from the hospital. I still have that reverberation. And I think I've said this before, I'm not even a huge Pink Floyd fan, but what the music means in this moment is less about how I feel about it and more about what it actually brings to my dad's healing situation. So aligning with intention is actually bigger than just getting what you want, but the process is the same. And when we learn to use our creativity to get what we want, we open up the space of being able to do that more often. Practice guidance for this week: pay attention to the intentions that you identified 2 weeks ago. If you didn't do that, pay attention to the things that are the most, floating around your head of what you want, and then see what it would take to get them. Is it within your grasp to line up what you need? And if it's going to be really hard, maybe come up with a couple new intentions. Really hard. If it's, like a long-term goal, let it go for a long time. But we're talking about the smaller short-term things. How do you cross a lot of things off your list just by lining the intentions up? And how do you put just a little bit of effort behind the things that have been sitting on the list for a little while to get them moved? So moving things around, creating mental space for our creative intentions is the point of the practice guidance this week. Do what you can to clear the decks for your own creative development. I will be back next week to talk about wholeness. We are at the end of the practice, my very favorite week, where we allow every single thing that we go through to be experience, making it valid. I'm not saying positive. Obviously, we enjoy our more fun moments more than the ones that aren't, but our growth really comes from both and the perspective of both. So if we can give grace to our trauma and our more difficult experiences that gives us the time to see what we can gain from them and what is valuable. Wholeness. See you next week.